Okay, I think we can get started now. Uh, so yeah, let's just jump right into it. So hey everyone, my name is Akash. I'm the president of SprintUofT. We're super excited about today's panel. A little bit about myself. I'm currently a PM intern, a product management intern at BlackBerry. I've done some PM internships in the past. I've also done some software engineering internships in the past around the tech startup area, and I'm heading to my final year of computer engineering this year. So I'm super excited to present today's panel. For today's event, we received over 100 student responses, and we're so excited to have received an overwhelming number of questions from all of you. So a little bit about SprintUofT. We kind of saw the need to bridge the gap between what students actually thought about the tech industry and what it's actually like. At U of T specifically, a ton of us kind of gear towards software engineering. But the truth is that there's so much more out there than just software engineering. There's product management, there's data science, UX, and at U of T, we thought we could do a better job to really bring that to the community. So we really hope to help you in your tech career, and we have alumni here to really help us with that today. And most importantly, we really do hope to create a positive tech community at U of T, where you're really encouraged to help one another succeed and really realize that success is with all of us together. So I'm joined today with the executive team of SprintUofT, Andy, Deep, and Rohit.
Hi everyone, my name is Andy. I'm the Director of Technology at SprintUofT. I just finished my third year in computer engineering, and currently I'm on my professional experience year. I'm a project manager at Zynga, so think of like Farmville and all of those games. And then previously I was a technical product manager and software engineer at Deloitte.
Hey guys, my name is Rohit. I'm the Director of Strategy in SprintUofT. I'm an ECE2 TO and I'm just finishing up my PEY internship at IBM, and I've been in a couple of various roles at IBM, such as a project manager and a software engineering full stack intern. So I'll pass it on to Deep.
Hey guys, my name is Deep. I am the Vice President at SprintUofT, and I'm currently interning at Qualcomm as a software engineer, and I was previously a technical product manager at Deloitte last summer, and I'm currently going into my fourth year in computer engineering. So today we're very excited to have all of you on board. We're joined by 4 amazing panelists who are U of T alumni. We're working in product management, program management, and software engineering roles. And today we're going to be spending about 40 minutes or so going through questions that you submitted previously. And then we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes left for an open Q&A session. So just before we begin, I want to go over some house rules. Number 1, please keep your mics and cameras off just to respect the panelists and everyone else. If you have questions, please post them in the chat. We'll have someone moderating the chat as we go. And lastly, if you can't stay for the whole panel, this session will be recorded and you will be able to access it after the panel is over. Now, without further ado, let's get into introductions. Our panelists, it would be great if you guys can tell everyone your name, a little bit about yourself and your past experience, and share a fun fact about yourself. So let's begin with Emily.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily. I am a product manager at Shopify. I previously was a associate product manager at Salesforce, spent my internship there, and also did a brief stint, 6-month stint there in the Bay Area, and then and I studied industrial engineering, graduated last year, did my PEY at BMO, doing a bit of consulting. And then fun fact about me, man, I really, 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 really like ketchup on rice.
That is awesome.
I know it's so strange, but I'm a sponsored rice person. Oh, Paul, you're next on my screen.
Wow, ketchup on rice. That's something else. So my name is Paul. I am a NSI Robo 1T8. I'm currently a software engineer on the ads optimization team for bidding, and I previously interned twice at Amazon, once on the Alexa team, once on personalization. And then I've also done an internship at a small five-person startup called EvaChat, which was a legal tech startup. And I've also done internships at TravelScale, all in software engineering though. Oh, and a fun fact about me. I'm I'm pretty good at StarCraft. That'll be my fun fact.
Awesome. Marissa, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Marissa. I'm a PM at Microsoft. So I studied industrial engineering at U of T, 127 plus PEY. My PEY was spent across Microsoft and Deloitte. I did 2 internships in PM here, and then I was like a designer and a developer at Deloitte, in Deloitte Digital. At Microsoft, I work on video creation experiences. So I'm like a cross-team PM that works on video editing tools for students and for enterprise. My fun fact, last summer I ran a 200-mile relay from like down the side of Washington's. It's pretty cool. I don't know.
Damn, that compared to my ketchup on rice. Yeah, I'll be quiet.
I'll go next. Hey, my name's Rostin. I graduated NSI 127 plus PEY. I work at the marketplace team on Facebook. So if you see any bugs, feel free to slide into my DMs. And fun fact about me is I think The Office is a really overrated show. That's what I'm gonna say right there.
That's interesting. That's controversial, but we'll let it slide. Awesome. Yeah. So thanks for the intros, guys. So we received a ton of questions. So I guess like we can just like jump right into it. So the first question that I want to ask to each of you, and really feel free to go in any order here. What do you like most about your role, and what are things that you find super challenging about your role on a day-to-day basis? I'll direct that to Emily first.
Sure, I guess I'll start. So just a bit of context, I work on the Google shopping team, or Google channel now, at Shopify. So basically, I'm a PM on the integration side of things. So looking at how we can help merchants sell more through different channels. As you know, buyers, we kind of are on a day-to-day, we are playing with multiple apps, and we're engaging with merchants on multiple things, whether you know it or you don't, through different surfaces on Google, like YouTube. You see ads, you see on Google Maps also. So I basically help Shopify merchants surface their products and sell better through all these these surfaces across Google, as I'm sure Paul knows really well because he works on the ad side of things. The tough thing about my job is just coming in as a PM, especially at Shopify. I think the craft itself is very different depending on what company you come from, but it's certainly a contrasting experience from what I had at Salesforce. But here at Shopify, it's really, they specifically call like the APM the apprentice product manager instead of the associate product manager, simply because they really value like the amount of knowledge, in-depth knowledge you know about a particular product within Shopify, and they hope that you become like the subject matter expert and you grow with that product as you scale it across millions of merchants. And so coming in, it was really humbling. It wasn't like, they didn't really value the experience you had like working at your last company, and it was more about how much do you know about our Shopify merchants, and how do you build products that please them and amaze them. And so the toughest thing was building that sort of context around Shopify. So there are a lot of product managers that like focus specifically on like payments or like shipping or like billing or like Facebook, in my case in Google, and building that sort of knowledge about Google products is like very, very challenging. Not only coming in, you have to learn about Shopify, you now have to learn about Google, and building that partnership as a PM with Google so that we can sort of shore up to like roadmaps and ensure that both like companies are satisfied with the deal that we're shipping products for both of our consumers and merchants is like the most challenging thing for me.
Cool, yeah, and maybe really quick before we kind of continue with everyone else, and maybe Marissa, when you get to this part of the question, you could answer the same thing. For everyone really on the call right now, could you maybe give like a 2-line description really about what you guys kind of think product management kind of is?
Yeah, I'll just finish up with what I was thinking. I think just being able to make quick decisions, great decisions quickly. It's actually one of Shopify's values. You often have imperfect information. You can never like make the best decision, and you can't predict what the best outcome can be. But having that product judgment through years of experience, whether through building out your T, so that T is like breadth versus depth, having that like sort of mental model around making decisions is so important, and that's basically what PMs are. We don't really, ship things necessarily in the sense of coding or outputting designs and whatnot, but it's about like getting the product to consumers and merchants and businesses and making sure that it's delivering value to them. So really looking at managing like the 4 different axes of risk. You have usability, you have business viability. Is this like viable for Shopify? Like, why would Shopify invest resources in building this kind of stuff? Is it feasible? Like, is this in the best interest of your engineers? And is it like usable from a UX research perspective, from a design perspective? Like, why are we building this if our merchants can't use it? So really managing those 4 areas.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Rostan, do you think you could kind of jump in and kind of talk a little bit about your role and things you find challenging about your role on the software engineering side of things?
Oh man. So, okay, I'll give you some context. I remember when I was in first year and I would listen to people talk about like their roles at companies too. I'd be like, wow, these guys are gods. Like they're so smart, whatever. But really, like now that I work at Facebook, it's just every day I have no idea what's going. Not say I don't have no idea what's going on, but it's really difficult. And I think that you're never gonna feel completely comfortable in what you're doing because there's always something new, always something that's not working. So I think that if you're ever feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough or I'm like too scared, that's okay. Because like, trust me, we're just as dumb as you are. Like you just gotta be comfortable doing things that you've just never seen or done. And I think that's the hardest part. And I think school and suffering a lot there helps me a lot with that.
True. Yeah, definitely. So Paul, what do you think about, I guess, like what you really like and what you find challenging in your role as a software engineer?
Yeah, I mean, I think software engineering, the core task of writing code to solve problems is something that is very similar at most companies, at least from my limited experience and from my friends. What I really like about my work at Google as a software engineer is that at least in my team, things are very like cross-functional and full stack. Like my team doesn't own like a very siloed like tech stack or code base where I'm often touching in other people's code. I'm having to consult experts in different areas of the code, and it helps me become a better engineer by learning about, I guess, the wide variety of tech that's available at Google. And also there's a lot of ownership in like, just if I see a problem, I get to assign it to myself and fix it. And if I have ideas for improvements, it's just, that's what I work on. I don't feel like I'm, this code monkey that's just spits out tasks that are given to me. So I really like that aspect. But on the other hand, like what is challenging is that I think, especially for people who are coming out of UFT engineering, like we're all very, smart problem-solving people, and so when we're assigned a task, that's easy work, right? Like if you know the problem and it's pretty well defined, that's we could all do that. And the hard part really is when it comes to Google and ads, which is like a very mature business. There's a lot of I guess like business context that I'm missing as just a software engineer, and so like figuring out like how does my changes impact other teams and other businesses and the sales op teams and the GTech teams. I think those things are big challenges, and so like figuring out exactly what to do, as Rosalind was talking about, is a big challenge, because it's hard to know everything. Like I'm trained as a software engineer, but I'm not an expert in ads. So like getting that like industry knowledge has been a bit of a challenge in trying to integrate that into my technical solutions.
Cool. And Marissa, how would you like to, I guess, add on to that? I guess like what you find challenging as a
Totally.
program manager.
A bit more context on why my title is program manager. It's a little confusing, right? At Microsoft, program management is actually an umbrella term for many different roles. Personally, my role aligns the most to product management, but at other companies like Google, for instance, you have your PGM and your PM. So a little bit more context there. I'm speaking from the product perspective. In terms of what I love and what I find challenging, impact. Being a PM is very, very high impact. I actually chose this role because I don't have to, focus on one little part of the application. I get to manage the strategy for a larger feature, a larger product. So when I shipped this thing that we've been working on for a year, like that is a really impactful moment, and you can kind of see like the usage go up, like your MAU trends go up, like it's a really rewarding job. On the flip side, because there's so much impact, there is a lot of responsibility and burden that's placed on you in terms of accountability. So the challenging part is to be okay with managing a bunch of ambiguity, being okay with putting out fires, dealing with if things go wrong, your butt is on the line to resolve that. And that results in often long hours and stressful situations. So it's definitely a role where you have to be confident and able to compartmentalize work with your personal life.
Awesome, thank you for that. Now, the next question we'd like to ask is, would you guys be able to talk about some misconceptions about working in the tech industry? So specifically Rostan and Marissa. You guys can take a stab at that.
Rostan, do you want to go first, or
Can you repeat the question? You froze when you said it, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So what are some misconceptions about working in the tech industry?
I need to think about that for a bit. I think one thing that comes to mind is the idea that it's summer camp, right? Oh yeah, you're you have all these benefits, all of your stuff is taken care of, so then you can work long hours and not have a life and just grind out code. I'm not a programmer, but honestly, working at Microsoft is pretty much like any other job. It's pretty normal. The hours are reasonable. I guess we don't really have the perks that other companies do, but it's just a normal place to work. The company culture is great. It's not really too cutthroat or anything like that. At least for us, it's just pretty normal. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it definitely does. Rostan, did you have anything maybe to add on to that misconception question?
Oh, I think this relates back to my last point that I viewed everyone as these just stellar, elite, people I'd never be able to touch growing up. And yeah, just people are normal. That's what I realized. Most people at these companies, they have their own personal struggles. They also have a lot of imposter syndrome is very, very real at Facebook, because I mean, I'm sure you guys know what it's like at U of T as well. Yeah, just people are normal people. They're not the nerdy programmers you see on TV all the time. Yeah.
Cool, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so the next question we have is for Emily. And the question is really about how important do you think that networking and connections are for job hunting in the tech industry specifically?
Yeah, I think it's pretty important. I think one of the biggest misconceptions with tech is the way that people approach consulting and kind of getting jobs in those roles is not quite so stringent and so there's no recipe necessarily to get the same kind of results in tech in terms of networking. I would say I think it's important to know what you want and have a keen passion for technology and the sort of first principle thinker of how you want to go about solving a problem and coming to the table and meeting people and doing enough research to be personable and be I really want to learn from you. I want you to take me as a mentee. I really love this company that you're building, or I really like this project that you're building. I think that helps you differentiate from a lot of other keen people who are competing for the same sort of networking opportunities. And so I would definitely take conferences and anything that's happening on campus to kind of speak to recruiters and folks. But I think one of the best ways to do so is actually through cold emailing on LinkedIn. I think that helped me a lot. And also just meeting new entrepreneurs in Toronto through Meetup. I found that to be helpful a lot. Like, trust me, a lot of folks in the tech industry in Toronto, or wherever you are, whichever hub you're in, have a lot of like networking opportunities that they host in their companies, and they also have a lot of folks in their network that are very, very like knowledgeable and have great connections as well. So that's like the hidden gem, is like going to meetups. Once like COVID blows over, like it helped me a lot.
Cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think yeah, people can find it really difficult to reach out to people. So it's good to hear like that actually kind of it does work. Paul, did you want to kind of add on to that networking question, how important you think it is for networking and really getting a job in the tech industry?
I mean, I think there are a lot of different ways to get jobs in the tech industry, and networking is a very useful tool that many people can succeed in getting jobs with. It doesn't mean that like if you don't network, you can't get a job. I think that really the only fact about a software engineer or a software engineering candidate is that you're a smart person who solves problems using code. There isn't like this archetype of a software engineer that you have to fill to get a job in a tech role. Regarding networking, I think Emily hit a lot of the really good points, especially about like networking up towards people who are more experienced than you. But I think another aspect of networking that's also important is like networking among your peers, because what you'll end up realizing is that your peers are really, really smart people, and they're going to end up in interesting places, have cool connections. And I mean, being frank, in tech internships, referral trading is a huge component of recruiting. And so once you go to your first internship, you network with your other fellow interns, and people I interned with in my second year are all over, at Facebook, or, doing really cool things at Google, at Microsoft, all around. So I think it's also important to look out for your peers, because I wouldn't say it's as like cutthroat as maybe something like management consulting is made out to be. Tech is very like supportive and friendly, relatively. So I think you should be reaching out to your peers and helping them out, because they can help you out as well. And that's how we build our community too.
If I may, just you brought up a good point. Just really quickly, like I actually stumbled across the craft of product management when I was hating my time at BMO. I remember ranting this to Marissa or somebody in the audience here. And I literally reached out to somebody through LinkedIn. I did a quick search, like product manager at like all these big companies, and I found some one alumni actually from, I think at the time he's working at Redfin, which is like this real estate startup. I was like, literally, like, can I please just have 30 minutes of your day and like just talk to you about like breaking into this role? I have an idea of like what I think product management is, but I want you to validate some of my assumptions. And he was actually so open to like helping me, and it was because of him and that I actually got into the sort of industry of product management. So
that's awesome.
Nice, thank you for that. Now, the next question that I want to ask has to do with experience. What if you don't have any experience, but you want to work in these big tech companies? What advice would you give? And when it comes to recruitment, what do companies actually look at? Do grades even matter? I'll target Rostan for this. You can start with that.
Okay, so I actually had a really unique case. When I graduated, I didn't have a job. So I spent a year just applying to places. And then I applied to like over 150 jobs, and I got one offer. And then I used that offer to leverage other companies. And then I got 2 offers, and that was it. And one of them was Facebook. So I think that it is, let's be real, like if you don't have, it's much easier to get internships if you have higher grades. And then it's much easier to get full-time jobs when you have good internships. But I think like Paul mentioned, if you can leverage your peers and get referrals, and if you're really, really motivated to get what you want and you don't settle, I think you can do pretty well. It just takes a lot of sort of anxious moments before you get there, and that's understandable. In the meantime, though, what I did do in 4th year, I also had no software internships before. I did my PY at AMD in hardware. So in 4th year, I sort of volunteered coding on the side for 2 startups, and then I got software experience through that. And during my interviews, people would always be pretty impressed by that I would put in the time. So it helped a lot.
Nice. Paul, do you want to add anything to that, or Emily?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Rostan hit a lot of important points. The real core of it is that you're gonna need to be persistent. I don't think it's uncommon for people to be applying to over 100 jobs to get, a couple of interviews. And if you don't have a lot of experience, that I think is entirely normal. And the reality is that you just need one company to say yes, right? It doesn't matter if you've applied to 100 or 1,000 or 10. Like in the end, if you've gotten the offer, it's the same thing. So I think you should not be afraid to apply a lot and be ready for a lot of rejection. And it doesn't mean that you're not worthy or not smart enough. That isn't the case. It's that like everyone gets rejections. And sometimes to get your first break, you need to go through a little bit more rejections than someone who has a little bit more experience. But the other piece of advice is if you don't have any work experience, you need something else, right? Like whether that, grades can be an avenue, but if grades aren't your thing, then maybe you can work on go to hackathons or work on side projects. I know people who have kind of done their own venture, working through U of T hatchery in the summer. You don't need prerequisite experience for that. All you need is kind of your will to learn, and you can get something that you can actually talk about in an interview that might stand out on your resume as long as you have the persistence to work through that. I think Razdan's suggestion of volunteering is really great. You can volunteer your coding time. There are tons of startups that would love to have more coding work. You can also don't just think about traditional tech companies. You can help people with you can help companies or student clubs make their websites, for example. These are other things that you can do to stand out. And really what I'm trying to suggest is that you need something, but that something could be a huge range of things. Ranging from just really good grades to you're having an entrepreneurial spirit and making something really awesome. And I think there's a huge range of things in between.
Awesome.
For sure.
Marissa, I see you have your hand up.
Aha, the feature works. So I've done resume screening for Microsoft and I interview candidates, and I think Paul did a great job at touching on software, but if you're interested in PM and you don't have a lot of experience, I just want to highlight, we look for leadership potential, having extracurricular experience, student government, running clubs, any sort of way that you can show that you're stepping up and acting as a student leader. That's what my eyes go to first, because I think communication and that just wrangling of humans is so central to the role. Ultimately, we see a lot of resumes, right? A lot of people, ECE, same school project, same experience, right? You just have to think about ways where you can stand out. And Paul talked a lot about side projects, volunteering. Rostan talked about volunteering. Just anything you could do to make yourself stand out, just consider trying that. And one last thing is where and how you apply is really important. So for large tech companies, we recruit really, really early in the season. So August and September, often our headcount fills up. So I would encourage applying early, using referrals, and then also going to career fairs and events in person, because that way I can actually see your resume and then get it through. If you apply online, it might not be looked at necessarily, right? So consider those things as well.
Cool. Yeah, and Marissa, Marissa, just building on that, and really building on what everyone's kind of chimed in here. You guys are talking about doing these different things, but maybe specifically at Microsoft or specifically at Facebook or Google, at Shopify, what skills do you think that people could really try to hone in on during those extracurricular activities to really make themselves stand out outside of the classroom as well? Maybe Marissa, you can continue on that.
Sure, yeah. At least for our discipline, it's really you need a strong background in software, in business, and in design, and combine that together. That's a well-rounded PM. You can kind of choose what competencies you really want to like over-index on, I guess. Like I would say I'm more of a design-focused PM, but when I see someone with good experiences in all of those like 3 aspects, then they make themselves a really strong candidate.
Cool. Yeah, Paul, do you want to maybe, because I know you also answered the same question a little bit before about what kind of skills you think we can kind of do outside of the classroom as well?
I think the core of it is when you're screening for a software engineer, obviously the base requirement is can this person code, but once you pass the can they code threshold, I think the main things that they're looking for is this person smart, aka can they solve problems, and then would I want to work with this person. And so I think you want to demonstrate things that really showcase that you're good at solving problems. It's not enough to just be able to pump out a well-defined program. I think you have to work on projects or things that demonstrate your ability to like write code in an ambiguous environment with not everything completely defined. Like, can you think about your problem and then come up with a solution that makes sense to it? That really, I think that can manifest in a lot of different ways, but the core of it is just like that problem solving skills. You can show that you can code well, you can write code, or that you understand syntax, but your job is to solve problems.
Yeah, I think for me, just to add on, is like how I spent my time, my days when I just like my time at the bank was I like scouted like this entrepreneurship program. Some of you might have heard, it's called Next 36, and that was really my entry point, my splash pad, if you will, into like product management. I didn't really understand that being a founder translated so well to being a product manager. You're effectively just, you manage a company, sure, you define the product vision. Same idea with being a product manager, except your scope is much more defined and much smaller. So yeah, I literally applied to the Next 36, and I think in 2017 was when I applied, and blockchain was a huge thing, and I was like, you know what, let's play around with this thing. Let's see if there are other passionate folks that are also applying for that incubator program, who are also, have common interests. We kind of jammed on a project together and actually like tested it with like restaurant owners and stuff like that. I was able to speak on it in my interview, and I think that's what made me stand out in my resume, is like having that entrepreneurship sort of potential. It really depends on like what company you're applying to. Like if you're looking at a SaaS company like Salesforce, for example, can't speak for other companies, but for Salesforce, they were really looking at how can you like lead and guide people despite not having that enterprise sort of experience, despite not having worked at Salesforce for 50 years of your life and understanding what the hell customer relationship management is, but your ability to like rally these senior people and somehow like get them aligned on the common vision to execute, like that was sort of the potential they're evaluating you. And the number one interview question they ask you is like, what do you want to like do here at this company? And if your answer is, I want to become like a manager, I want to eventually become like a VP or a GM of this like product line, or I want to become the CEO of the company, like that's a very shallow answer, and they know very well, like straight from the get-go, that you're going at titles and you're not really looking for growth and change for that matter. And so that's what helped me stand out.
Rostan, we see you have your hand up. Sorry for keeping you waiting. Do you want to add on to what the other panelists have said?
Yeah, no worries. I'll be honest with you. I know you'll hear a lot of times like you should do this, you should do that. But the point is, like, I heard this a lot when I was in 4th year and didn't get any job offers. But it's like, you guys are students. It's really stressful and really busy. You don't have a lot of time. So if I could recommend anything for software specifically, I would just say grind out a lot of leak code and like software interview practices. Oh, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I did about, over the course of like 5 months, I did about 400 leak code questions, and I got pretty good at them by the end. And I think that's the hardest part about applying to jobs, I think, is just getting the interview. So once you get the interview opportunity, you want to do everything you can to nail that chance, and that's just all up to you. The getting interviews part, that's just kind of luck, but the rest of it you have control over.
Yeah, do all your leak code hards.
Awesome, thank you for that. Another question that we have is we wanted to ask if you guys have any mentors, and if you do, how did you meet them, and what made you realize that they were good mentors for you? Paul, go ahead.
You know, Marissa was actually my mentor back in the day.
Yeah, same.
Nice.
Oh, you guys.
She
That's
was
awesome.
she was my lead on Your Next Career Network, and that was when I was like actually thinking about tech as a career. And so Marissa really helped me in just talking me through and helping me get over that anxiety of, oh, I'm so behind other people because I haven't been to hackathons since I was a fetus or whatever it is. And I think really, well, sorry, was the question like, when did I realize they were a good mentor?
Or like, what made you realize that they were a good mentor?
I think that I think just anyone who's willing to engage with you and have like a real conversation about their experiences and is also willing to connect you with their network. I think those are really important aspects of a mentor. And I guess in general advice on like finding a mentor, I think the best way is to like put yourself out there and talk to people. I've had people I've done hackathons with. I joined a random team, and one of the guys who was there ended up, I was a total newbie at hackathons, and he really helped me out. And he's actually like one of my pretty good friends now. But he helped me like kind of coach me through software development and getting over anxiety and giving advice. But you can't find a mentor if you don't put yourself out there. And I don't think you need to look at people who are like 5 years or 10 years more experienced than you. I think you can find mentors of people who are your age or people who are only a year or two older than you. And I think the easiest way, you just gotta ask, you just gotta reach out to them. Like, no, don't say like, will you be my mentor? But more reach out and ask some questions. And the people who are engaging with you and answering with, I guess, as much effort as they can, I think those are the people that are that will be good people to ask questions to. I really lost it at the end, but yeah.
Yeah, I really want to speak to what Paul was saying, and I'm trying to kind of go behind the psychology of it, and I really think it comes down to the fact that this mentor that you're seeking really sees mentorship as a two-way street. They actually see you as someone who levels them up while they're leveling you up, and I think that's something really important, because why else should they devote their time in sort of this sort of mentorship relationship? And I think that's exactly like why I think Marissa was a great mentor for me too, just to break into PM, because she definitely had a lot more experience because she's a year older, and she's definitely amassed a lot of good experience from her PEY. She really like was able to put herself out there and actually like wanted to help you because she thought that that was valuable. It really made her a good mentor, and she could take on more people in the future because she really was invested in it. And I think you need to find those hidden gems of people who really care, because it's a two-way street. And I think, Marissa, you can speak more about it too.
Aw, you're so kind. I think that, like, I mean, personally, I mentor a lot of students or early in career PMs, and it's just like, I mean, I'm already pretty early in career, what am I saying? It's honestly really rewarding to mentor someone. Like, imagine to yourself if a student came up to you and asked you, like, hey, what was your experience like going through this course or like interning at this thing? Like, I'm sure like any decent human being would love to help. Like, you want to pay it forward, because people before you have helped you, you got to help others. So I think that, like, I mean, I give this advice a lot, but it literally doesn't hurt to ask. I think a lot of people are really shy about cold emailing and just like I used to find people in the company directory that worked on interesting stuff and just message them. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I think like the worst you'll get is a no. No one's ever going to get mad at you. I think the first step is to really just ask for what you want, because like nothing bad is going to happen from that.
Cool. Yeah. So
like annoyingly like persistent. Like, I've had people like message me on LinkedIn, and it's like that generic like question. It's like, oh, will you give me a referral and whatnot? And I'm like, oh man, like this is not even a warm introduction. Like, you cut straight to the chase, but it's like, I don't know you and I can't vouch for you. And it's like, if you just had followed up once more and said, hey, I realize I probably was too forward there, but here's a bit of like context or background about me, and like here's how. And so that the littlest things can like help you form these relationships.
I will also say, I think that when I was, especially in like early years, the advice that I struggled with the most was when someone would suggest that I need to bring something to the table as a mentee. And I didn't really understand what that meant at first. And it's not that you're, I don't know, like buying them stuff, or, it's not like you're going to refer them to things necessarily. I think that more of what that means is that you're not showing up to this only looking to get whatever you need from them and dip. I think the point of a mentor-mentee relationship is that like someone is willing to help you, but they're also doing that to like be friends with you or like get a little bit like closer to you. And so as long as you're not coming off as like ingenuine or someone who's just only reaching out to them because they can offer them a referral or something, I think avoiding that really will help in getting someone willing to help you and talk to you and continue a relationship with them, like show some interest in them actually, and not just like maybe fake it a little bit, but like actually do care about the well-being of the other person and just be curious. And I think like that is how you, but just being a genuine human being and like almost a friend, I think that's like really, that's what you can bring to a mentor-mentee relationship as someone who has no experience or whatever that might be.
Awesome. Yeah. So all like amazing responses. So at this point, we want to like tell the audience and everyone in the chat that feel free to just keep typing questions and we'll get to them. And we have one final question that we've kind of prepared already from pre-picked questions. And the question is really, if you could really summarize 3 points for all students here applying to internships and new grad roles, what would those 3 points of advice kind of be? And maybe you could speak to that a little bit. Mercer, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. I think the first one I just wanted to reiterate, just like ask for stuff and put yourself out there and like don't be shy about being aggressive within reason, right? The second is to really just like, I think Rostan mentioned leak coding like all the time. Like honestly, interviews are a formula. You can grind out an interview like if you try hard enough. Like you don't have to be a genius to do so. So if you have that opportunity, like just study as much as you can. And then I guess like third, probably like leverage your network, right? Like keep forming mentorship relationships, keep like, asking for referrals from friends, get people to coach you through interview problems, study together. Don't make it just like a lone one-person journey.
Awesome. Emily, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just echo everything Marissa said. But I think if you want to stand out, and again, I can only recall from my experiences, is they want to see you have a bias for action. What that means is like when some shit hits the fan, like you are willing to drop everything and fucking attend to that. And like if you demonstrate that you've been able to do that from a work or PY or school setting or extracurricular setting, or even starting your own venture or your own startup or your own side project, telling that story and being able to do it in a way that like storytelling is a really great skill for you to like hone in. And I think they don't teach that a lot in school, especially in engineering. It's not something that people's skills are just not heavily like emphasized in school, and that's okay, because I would say like academics are like traditionally outdated from like where we are today in the technology world. But anyways, that's my rant. What I was getting at is having a bias for action and making sure that you are accountable and demonstrating and telling stories that you have demonstrated this is so important. That makes you stand out, especially amongst like many candidates, especially in the States. Like when you're interviewing for these hot like tech companies or startups, what have you, you're competing amongst the Ivy Leagues of the world and a lot of kids who are entrepreneurs themselves. So it's very important that you step up to the plate and make your story unique.
Yeah, for sure. Rostan, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, sure. First of all, don't ever be ashamed to ask for referrals for 3 reasons. 1, it's a win for you because you get the job. 2, it's a win for the referral person because they refer you and they get a bonus. 3, it's a win for the hiring manager because they refer you and they track to the company. Honestly, but along with that, don't be one of those people who literally only message someone only when you need them, because that's really annoying and it gets really irritating after a while. Yeah, but just be very honest. Be like, hey, I know we're just Facebook friends and we haven't talked to each other in real life, but I heard you work here and I'm interested in like applying there and learning more about. Could you help me out? I think that's very valid and most people would help. Second, I think is, I know it's really hard, especially when you're in school and people talk about it all the time, but everyone has their own sort of journey. So try not to compare yourself, because there's always going to be someone who's better than you, or like appears to be doing better than you, has like a better job, higher pay, like whatever. And it's really hard sometimes to be like, man, am I doing enough? Am I okay? But really, like, I think you should just be yourself and realize that you're doing your best and that's all you can do. And if you do get any opportunities, be really grateful for that and grateful to everyone who's helped you, because in the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you work, like you're going to care about the people who you meet and you work with and you're friends with and your classmates. And that goes a lot further than how successful you are at your job.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Paul, maybe you could wrap this up.
Yeah, I think it all boils down to three things. Is like, one is you need to be like, I think first and foremost, you need to be persistent, almost to the point of being shameless, whether that's being persistent in like grinding out 400 lead code questions, or it's applying to 150 companies, or it's, you know, like cold emailing like 50 different people. You just got to be persistent. The reality is you're going to need to hit a lot of no's before you get some yeses, and the no's, just brush them off. It doesn't matter. Number two, I think, is that people matter. So value your relationships with mentors, your peers. I think if you think about, you know, like not just taking from people, but like also give back to the community, I think you'll find a lot of value, and that might actually connect you with people that can boost your own career, as long as you're focusing on the relationships with other people. And I think the last one is like kind of be true to yourself, because there's no one correct path, or there's not one like archetype of a perfect software engineer, I think, or someone in tech in general. So just be true to what you want to do, and I guess the passions that you have, and try not to compare yourself too much to others, as Roseanne said.
All right. I think at this moment we'll open up the floor to any other questions from the attendees themselves. A question that we saw a lot of upvotes from was, what do you think about pursuing a master's? And I guess overall, would it help you to get a career inside SWE or PM?
I think if you really care about the academics of it, or if you have an academic interest, then you should definitely pursue a master's. Like, I think no question. Another thing that you can consider is that a lot of these big tech companies will provide tuition reimbursement, and there are, for example, at Stanford, they have a part-time master's program. At the University of Washington, near like the Seattle offices, there's a part-time master's program that you can get your tuition reimbursed for. And you can always go back to school, but I don't think that I don't think you should look at masters as like necessarily like a necessary stepping point for your career. I think you should do it if it is a subject matter that you're interested in, or have an academic curiosity, or it's relevant to your field directly. I don't think like you should just blindly do it for no reason.
Yeah, I guess from a PM standpoint, you got to really evaluate your cost benefit. And I think if you're trying to get into a like major tech company in the States, like I think based on my experience at Salesforce, if you want to level up quicker, you know, to being like a manager or a senior manager, what have you, like I'm not a personal fan of like roles and trying to like live up to those things, but they do prefer that like you would have like an MBA sort of experience. But then again, that's working at like the enterprise sort of space. And enterprise is risk averse in general. Technology in that space is always risk averse, and they kind of rely on your industry expertise, how many years you've spent in this particular vertical or whatever, how much experience you have in it, and how much schooling you have in it. And usually they look for like the top schools that you're trying to that you did your studies in or your master's in, and those typically become like Stanford, MIT, and Cal, what have you. They're very to the average Canadian, it's like it's sort of sad, because it's like, well, they're not considering like Canadian universities and like what pedigree you have, major great universities in Canada, but that's just the reality of it. And I personally am not a huge fan of like doing a master's just for the sake of like being a PM. I think an MBA doesn't teach you anything on the job. You need to really understand what the hell, like in my case, what e-commerce is. Actually like get your hands dirty and like be involved in the day-to-day execution of like what you're supposed to be building in order to build up that experience, so that you become like the subject matter expert, and like whoever new PM that's entering your team, you're able to like tell them everything about like what there is about their product. I think that is more valued over like just short stints in doing an MBA degree and like an internship at like Visa or like PayPal for like 4 months or whatever. That's not enough time for you to build that sort of on the ground experience. So definite no for masters for me. But Marissa, you might have a different point of view from a product manager.
I don't think a master's is necessary. I think you should pursue a master's if you're interested in a subject rather than to prepare for a job.
Exactly. Simple as that.
Awesome. So to ask another question that the audience is giving out. So we know that LeetCode is a highly used software engineering technique or software engineering program that's used to prepare for interviews. But what can we do for project managers or PMs to prepare for their interview sessions? Is there any tool that they could use?
It's all like, I guess, analog, right? Like I would start with Cracking the PM Interview. That's a really good book. And then there's also PM interview questions like available all across the internet. Gather a whole list of those and then just grind them out with your friends. It's really hard to do it by yourself. Like I know you can LeetCode by yourself, but personally, talking to a wall about like a question that I'm working on is not fun. So I gather friends, my mentors that are established PMs, and get them to run me through a question. Because the question is really like you and the interviewer solving a problem. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of interaction. So it's literally just booking time with people and going through them. It helps if someone else is interviewing as well, and you can pair up.
Yeah, I think just to complement that, while we're on the topic of prepping for product management interviews, is like you also have to like know your shit and like know the types of questions they're gonna like give you. And I think there are some canned sort of templates that you'll see online. I'm happy to send over resources later after this call. But the other side to come to the table with is like yourself well, and you know what you want out of this company, and you know what you see yourself as becoming. And that's not necessarily, like I said, a title or a role. It's like to make the world better in this way, and having that sort of vision for like what you're willing to like take a bet against is like, oh, I think the future of like IoT is going to take off for these reasons, and I think this technology is amazing, and like for these reasons, like coming to the table and having like conviction about a particular thing that's gonna like change the industry. I think that wows a lot of interviewers in the SaaS industry, sadly. But I think coming with Shopify, like they really valued your personal story, and that's like after the interview here is like, how did you get to where you are today, and where do you want to go tomorrow? And that's where you become very like, you need to be very candid, and this is going to be your most personable response, and it's not going to be something that you get from the textbook or from online resources. So you have to really know yourself well, know your weaknesses, and be open to being vulnerable in that way, because they're gonna like good interviewers tend to be able to pick that out of you.
Okay. So another question that we had was, what were some extracurriculars or projects that were highly valued on your resume for both PM and software roles? Or like if you guys want to list out kind of what extracurriculars you had during kind of your university careers.
Maybe Paul, you could take a stab at that one.
Sure. So I think the main one I was involved with the most was Your Next Career Network. I was on the team for 3 separate years. I think that one was really valuable in finding like-minded people, and like developing a network and like leveraging the alumni. Also, I generally just believe in that you are motivated by the people you're close with. So I think just being surrounded by really smart people and like hardworking people really can contribute to your own personal success and motivation. So any club should be good for that. But I think if you're specifically interested in tech, maybe you could join like Sprint UFT or something. You know, you're gonna find people who have like similar interests. I think I also personally found, well, I also was involved in a lot of like other student efforts. I was involved in Frost Week. I was a Don at Chestnut. I was a part of a fraternity, and I think those kind of people-oriented extracurriculars helped me become a more well-rounded person and feel more comfortable in like communicating. Because also, newsflash, when you do a coding interview, you still have to communicate your thoughts. And also, I think I mentioned earlier that you have to kind of show that you're smart and that you're someone that would be good to work with. And I think having like leadership experiences will at least show that you're motivated and that you'll be someone that's good to work with.
Awesome. That's really nice to hear. One more question before we head off to the final play of the evening. So, Rostan, you're a little quiet right now, but I'm going to ask you a question just to get you back in here. How do you think that a student that's younger with a mentor that's older, how is that relationship really benefiting the mentor, the older mentor? I know Emily and Marissa talked about this a lot earlier, but would you like to explain a little bit further?
Well, I mean, if the mentor doesn't suck, you would do it. I don't think of like my manager or my like PM as like my mentors. Like, to me, they're people I can talk to about anything. I really trust them. I respect them a lot. They work really hard. And like, if I ever need to, like, they've always got my back. Like, it's kind of weird to say they're my friends because they're like 35 and like they have kids, but like I do think of them as friends. And I have a lot of friends who are younger who I guess I mentor them, but I don't really think of them as mentoring. It's just like, we're friends, we catch up, and if they have questions, like, I'll answer them about software. Otherwise, like, I care about them and I want to know how they're doing. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not really a mentor-mentee relationship. It's more of a friendship that is just beneficial for both parties.
I think it depends, because if it's a complete stranger, then it's kind of weird to be like, I want to be friends with you. But I think if you go into it like, hey, I don't have much experience with this. How do I do this? What are the things that you did, some action items that I could follow? And then I think if you show that you're earnest and you really want something and you're not just like selfish and you're never going to help anyone else ever, then yeah, like, who wouldn't want to help? That's the way I see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we are approaching 9:10, so we're going to start wrapping this up. We just want to say thank you to everyone who's in the audience right now for joining and providing your questions. And thank you, of course, to our panelists. One quick note on the questions. We know we didn't touch on a ton of these questions. There are really so many good ones. In a couple of weeks, specifically July 9th, at the same time, we're going to actually have another panel with a whole new set of new grads who might be able to answer some more of these questions that might be outstanding. But yeah, once again, thank you again to everyone who's here. Thank you to our panelists. We really appreciate all the insights. It's been, honestly, I think everyone can agree, so useful. And really, I think it really helped us all think about things again in a positive light. I think it's important to really emphasize that these days.
Oh, can I say one more thing before we leave?
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, this is like a really good actionable advice, is have a really clean formatted resume, because a lot of resumes are very similar. Everyone's like graduate school, everyone's done like some internship, but if it could look really easy on your eyes, that helps a lot. I have I spent a lot of time on my resume in like LaTeX, and if anyone wants a template, feel free to just message me on Facebook and reach out. I'm happy to share.
Yeah,
For
I'm
sure.
down.
And
For
yeah,
sure.
and on that note, we'll be happy to kind of like provide a list of resources of the things that our panelists have kind of mentioned today. So leak code, cracking the PM interview, and like latex. We can kind of go through that and send out resources later. Deep has also just posted a Google form in the chat. Feel free, and we really do ask everyone to just take a minute of your time to go through that form, tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, and then hopefully again join us in a couple of weeks. Deep, did you want to add anything?
No, that was it. I just want to say thank you to all the panelists and the attendees for spending an hour of your evening for us. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. I just dropped a link. It's intern.supply, and it's kind of like a curated list of like over 100 different software companies that hire internships, and whenever they're posted, this website's updated. I use this to apply to like over 100 internships. So yeah, hopefully that's useful.
Awesome. Thank you.
And again, this entire thing has been recorded and it will be sent out. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Good luck.